Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untied Reviews. This being a show, it's about TV shows that are dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of Billy the Kid. A great series premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I was actually kind of surprised with the structuring of this episode that we only got like the beginning and the end of the episode really with Billy older. I mean, to be fair, it's not like Billy was... I'm going into this knowing the bare minimum about Billy the Kid. I've seen stuff with Billy the Kid. Like, I think he's in the Young Gun movies, but I've never seen them. And then, like, Emilio Estevez, who plays him in those? I'm not sure. I want to say, but I could be wrong about that. But it's just one of those figures in history where you're like, I know very little about you. Hell, I even just Googled him a little bit before even doing this recording, just to make sure, because I was like, I knew he was like fairly young when he died. He was like 21 when he died. So obviously, but obviously getting to know kind of his legend and his story is definitely going to be interesting, especially because, and I would assume a lot of this is going to be obviously hyperbolized for like the sake of like TV show storytelling, but I didn't know like he was an immigrant. He's an Irish immigrant, so I didn't know that. Going back to the point I was making, like I knew that this story was going to cover him as a child and kind of, obviously it's part of his story of understanding how he got to where he was. I guess in my head I thought mainly the focus would be like on a certain section of his life, but once again he was fairly young when he died, so it's like so you probably have to kind of cover everything to really tell a full story of this character's story and everything that he went through, everything he experienced. But I guess in my head I was almost expecting the first episode to be like maybe like the first chunk to maybe half the episode being about him when he was younger, and then like the rest of the episode being about present day. It's like, no, 95% of this episode is about him as a kid, but once again it's to understand what circumstances, how rough his life was, obviously starting off in New York. And it's interesting too because like that time frame isn't a big time frame. It's 6 years. And I'm curious to, and once again, these are going to be things that, yes, as you watch the show, these are things I'm going to get answered to, but it's just one of those things where I just like letting you know where my thought process is. Having only seen the first episode, and I believe like from, because a lot of shows and networks have started doing releasing the first 3 episode model sometimes. The first 3 episodes are out. I want to say it's like from where it's like, right, they're on demand right now, but they're also going to be airing like one a week. But you can also find them on the Epix website. I want to say only the first 2 episodes, but maybe the 3rd episode is also free as well, just like from the first 3 episodes were free when they came out, so you can watch them without having like a subscription, so on and so forth, right? So, I've currently only seen the first episode, but my thought was, I'm curious to see, is this going to have that Once Upon a Time, Lost, and Arrow structure? And I reference them because these are the 3 shows I know that do that, where like part of the episode is flashbacks and part of the episode is present day. Obviously this episode was mainly a flashback, but I'm curious, is that going to be something we see structurally, or is it just as the season progresses, it'd be like, will the back half of the season mainly just lead up to focusing entirely on present day, because it's all about converging the moments of like, right, having his past catch up to where it is present day and continuing the story from there. That's what I'm curious. Once again, the answer's probably already been answered in episode 2 or 3, but I'm just, once again, letting you know my thought process currently. But getting into it, like I said, it's interesting learning about Billy's history, about growing up, living in New York, and living in a place that you can see is like, right, it's a place where other immigrants live as well. And so, interestingly enough, I have to look into it. The actress who plays his mom, Kathleen, seems so familiar, but the actor who plays Patrick, his dad, I was like, isn't that Jack Sear from The Witcher? I think so. Part of me wonders, is that why he also, like, his hair is like longer the way it is in The Witcher? Is it because he was doing this at the same time season 2 was coming out? I wonder if there's some correlation there, and maybe he couldn't cut his hair because of that, or probably doesn't matter. It's not that important. It was just one of those things I thought was just kind of interesting. But they are getting, like, Patrick doesn't have any work, and he's trying to get work, but living here in New York isn't going to be the easiest thing, so they decide, like, right, what we need to do is go out west because there might be new opportunities. But Patrick's like, yeah, but we won't be around our own people. Like, this here we have to be, because Irish people weren't treated well. Like that's I'm not even about to turn this into a conversation of, oh man, who had it worse. We're not having that conversation, but my understanding, and I once again, I am ignorant about a lot of like what a lot of Irish folk had to go through living in here in the U.S. and immigrating to the U.S. But like they weren't treated always the best. So like that's what I'm curious about. Like that's probably why his dad was like, yeah, but there's no Irish out. Like, we won't be around our own people. It's also because, like, right, at least here we have some semblance of home. It almost, even though we had to leave Ireland behind, but at the very least, it feels like we're here. Like, there's a community here where we're together so that we don't feel that loneliness. So, it might be a culmination of, like, right, they might feel a certain way because we're Irish moving out west, or it might just also because, right, we won't be around our own people. We'll kind of be isolated. But the opportunities there are there. So they're trying to go to a place in, Coffeyville, Kansas. And it's a way to make a new opportunity, make money, get good jobs so that they can buy a home. And Patrick is reluctant to go, but, Kathleen kind of convinces him because the person there, their family friends like Frank and Mary and their son, like that was all like, right, they're going, so we might as well take the chance to go as well. Now, going on what we know about Patrick's story Patty, as the story goes on, I'm curious, was he already feeling it back then, or was it just after everything when they got to Kansas, when they got to Coffeyville, that it would really kick him? Maybe it was always there, and it just hit its peak in Coffeyville. We'll get to there soon, but like when you look at his demeanor earlier in the episode, I mean, it could just easily be someone who's like, right, I don't want to leave this place behind. Even when he was packing stuff, he was going to leave a photo behind, and then Billy was like, well, what are you doing, Dad? Like, why don't you take this with us? He's like, yeah, just, we might end up coming back here one day. He says, I just don't want to take the chance I might lose it. So, how very foreshadowing. Because, I mean, first and foremost, getting a wagon out there, let alone 2 wagons out there, was costing a lot of money. It's like, oh, it's going to be $75 each. And it's like, we don't have that. No, it was actually $100. Someone else was doing $350, and he couldn't find anyone that could take them because they don't have a lot of money. And the only person they could find was someone Billy found, Moss. Which Moss was like, yeah, my wagon's a little messed up, and yeah, I might only have one eye, but I can get you there. The $75 was also going to cover protection and such, so... But ultimately feeling bad for them, because by the time Billy brought his family over, and Moss looks at Billy, he's just like, something about Billy, like, struck a chord with him. He's like, all right, I'll take the $100, because, like, Patrick was like, yeah, we barely have like $50 for each wagon. So like, yeah. So they end up taking the ride. And I thought it was interesting how Billy and Moss hit it off, because Moss was kind of telling him like, right, the journey here is going to be dangerous. So you always have to be inside. You have to pay attention to what you see, what you hear, notice whether there's like little hoof prints or not in the ground, because it lets you know if anyone's been in the area recently. So it's always like, even with his one good eye, it's like you always got to be very keep up with everything that's going on. Which the actor who plays Moss seems like I feel like I know that actor too. I just can't place what I know him from. I don't remember. But Moss and Billy definitely like really hit it off. And Kathleen believes, like, no, at the end of the day, everything's going to be okay, because, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of Irish people are Catholic, and I think especially at a time like this, it's just like, she believes, like, no, God's going to look after us, everything's going to be okay, and then what happens immediately, something went wrong, and they pretty much lost everything they own, which probably most likely I think also included that picture. And Patrick was just at first you were wondering whether or not he was sick, because it did seem like he was trying to get the stuff from that had fallen into the river, and just seeing it like everything they own getting swept away. And the only things they had left in this world getting swept away. But it's like, right, when we get there, that's all we're going to need. But then they are in a situation where people are going to try and rob them of their horses and stuff at night. So Moss and the others go out there to try and protect them. Frank is like, I'm not going to sit back and do nothing. And they scare them off, but Frank dies in the process. It's like, Frank shouldn't have done that. But it's also like, right, he's like, what kind of person is just going to sit back and wait for his family to get killed? And I'm like wondering, did any of that play a role in Patrick? Like Patty's situation, did it help worsen it or whatever? So they had to deal with that and continue going forward, especially for Billy's like, right, this is the first dead body he's ever seen. And Moss even saying, like, this is the It's something you never forget. And he ended up teaching Billy how to shoot a gun. And I was like, right, so Moss has been... Because I was wondering whether or not his dad was going to be a major influence in him being who he was, but it seems like Moss is actually the one who was super influential in him being who he was. And so, ultimately, they make their way to Coffeyville, and it is nothing that they thought it was. As they say, it's a literal shithole, and it's like, wow. So there's no job opportunities, because everyone there is struggling to make ends meet themselves. And it's like, right, they were kind of promised, like, almost like this American dream that there was going to be work here. And the guy Kathleen talked to him at one point and was like, I'm sorry, I can't help you. This is a bank. She's like, even with her experiences and stuff like that, I don't know if he was just reluctant to hire a woman or what. Because he's like, wait, so what about your husband? She's like, my husband's sick, but when he gets back, I guess because it's like, right, how do I know that this is even worth it in the end? And I love that Billy just went up, took the guy's pen, and he's like, hey, put my pen back. And Billy's like, let's go, Mom, and just left. It's like, right, you're not going to help us out? I'm going to take something from yours just because, you won't at least be sympathetic and human. So they did have a job working at, like, what was it, like an inn or something like that. They barely had enough to take care of themselves, and they offered Kathleen and her boys work because it's like, right, my boys are good, hard workers, so. And we find out more about Patty's situation. Patty it's not a physical ailment, it is a mental ailment where you're like, wow, okay. Obviously, this is 1871. There's no discussion about mental health at this point in time. It's like, we have nothing to cure it. If it was a physical ailment, sure. But whatever he's going through is mental. I'm like, oh, he's depressed, severely depressed. Because he's like, right, I can't even sometimes get the strength to get out of bed or even eat. He's like, I don't care if it's my body. But it's like, yeah, like the mind can, like, destroy and kill the body as well. Because Patty's just, I think that's why I'm like, I'm wondering, was it always there? And it just got exasperated because of the journey here, losing everything, or was it just a journey here and losing everything that really sparked that in him? Because that's why I'm like, that's what I was saying earlier, like when you look at the beginning of the episode where she's like, oh, are you sleeping? He's like, no, like either it's just because he's got the whole thought of like, right, do we stay here, do we leave, rummaging through his head, or was it already like those inklings of like, right, I'm just kind of like low energy, and I don't know what to do with myself. And so they're doing all they can to try and make ends meet, and it's really heartbreaking. Like one of the last conversations Billy had with his dad, he's like, I love you, son. He's like, I love you too, Dad. And he was like, always look up at the stars whenever you get the chance. Basically let them be a reminder of the light shining in you, like even when you eventually grow up and become a man. Because they were kind of left alone in Coffeyville because Mary had to leave with her son, Sam. Because she was like, right, we can't stay here. They've already lost too much. They have to find their way moving forward. So they go back to New York. Moss had commented on how much of a strong kid Billy was. He's like, because Billy had asked him on the journey, like, right, what was your dad like? And then all Moss could do was, like, look at Patty, and he just answers. Doesn't go into it. He just says, things don't always work out the way you want them to. So that's why I'm like, there's layers to that of like their journey here did not work out the way they wanted it to. The fact is that all their hopes and dreams are kind of put into this, and it shattered them, and that can leave you kind of a shell of your former self to some extent. But the next time we see Patty after that conversation he had with Billy about the stars and everything, he's laying in bed, and I guess a priest came to give like final rites and stuff. And then the next thing we see, it's like, Billy's dad's dead. I guess it's just like, right, he just couldn't, his will to live, I think, just finally gave out in his body. Because I was scared at every moment, because I'm like, he seems depressed. He's going to kill himself, isn't he? Like, I didn't know whether he was going to shoot himself, or whether, like, Billy's going to found him, like, that he hung himself or something. But it's like, no, I think his body just gave out. It's just like he couldn't find, like, it's just that thing of like, right, when someone you love, like when they lose that spark of life, it's almost like their body just finally just gives up. It just takes that mental like exhaustion just eventually takes its toll on the body. I think that his body just finally gave up. He gave up, And the last thing Billy has, what we see at least on screen, is him calling out to his dad, and his dad like touching his hands, And so now he has to find a way to keep going, because it's like, it's not just him, it's his brother, and his mom he has to look after. So trying to, and I think that's also kind of supposed to be what's significant by like when he took that pin and stuff, because it's like, right, come on, Mom, because it's like, don't worry, Mom, I got your back. No matter what it is, I'll find a way to protect us and take care of you. And like I said, he had learned from Moss how to use a gun, and we got that moment where we cut back and forth when he's picking up the gun and he's pointing it, and I guess it's sparking inside of him of like, right, the way this world is, sometimes if you want to make it by, you might have to take from other people. So, and then we hard cut to like, I didn't cover it, but the beginning of him walking into a bar and he runs into a guy named Joe, and it's like, okay, and he touches Joe's gun, and you can tell he removed some of the bullets, but because even when Joe points the gun at him, you can look at the chambers to the revolver, and you're like, all right, 2 of the bullets go in, and Billy was like, all right, he's like, please do not, I really don't want to kill you, please don't make me do this. And Joe pulls first empty chamber, and the second one, Billy gave him another shot. He pulled it again. He was like, please don't do this. And before he could fire the third shot, Billy shot and killed him. Because it turns out Joe wanted to go after the bounty that's on Billy's head. So at this point, he's got a renowned enough reputation that he's got a bounty on his head. And so the question then becomes, there's still that's still 6 years we haven't, it's going to be interesting to kind of delve into and understand the story of how he got to where he was. What he's gone through, what he's lost in that time frame. And so he even announces to everyone else, he's like, right, he couldn't let go and wanted the bounty on my head. That's why I'm like, why did Billy come out? I guess because Joe was hunting him down, and maybe in the I don't know, because Joe didn't recognize him, so maybe this is their first time meeting face to face, or maybe Joe came after people Billy cared about because he came looking for Billy, and it's like, oh, I know you have a connection to Billy, and maybe some people got hurt or killed. Because there's still so much, those scenes are out of context, because they're like, right, what was the leading up moment to that? Why did Billy go out of his way to look for Joe, someone that's hunting him for his bounty? And it's like, I was giving you an opportunity to walk away. I really don't want to kill you. But he says, like, right, he left me no choice because he wanted the bounty on my head. Leave some money. And it's like, right, make sure he gets a proper burial, a priest and everything. That's all I have to say. Being like, I think showing that Billy has this respect for life of like, I didn't want to have to do this. I will kill if I have to, but I don't want to. Once again, the little bit I read about Billy is that, once again, and even then, it's just like a quick Wikipedia like scan of like 1 or 2 lines. Of like, before dying, he had killed like 8 people. So I don't know if Joe's like one of those 8 people. Was it just like, because my perception of Billy had always been like he is this like this wild bandit that was like was just kind of like, yeah, I'm having fun. But I don't know whether this show is just going to give you a different perspective, a different look on Billy than most things might portray him. Once again, this is coming from someone who does not have the historical knowledge about Billy, who has not seen a lot of media about Billy. Not saying there isn't a lot, there is, but this is just the first time I've never, because I'm trying to remember, like, I feel like, I wonder, was Billy ever in some of the time travel shows I watched, like Timeless? I know they met Bass Reeves, but I don't know if they ever met Billy the Kid. I can't remember. Maybe? I don't think it ever came up in Legends of Tomorrow either. Tangents and all that aside. But I had my preconceived notions of kind of who I thought Billy the Kid was. That he was like this high-spirited, like, yeah, I'm on top of the world. Like, I'm willing to, like, he's a wild card of a kid. And feels weird calling someone who's like 21 a kid when I'm like 29. But regardless, that's kind of my perception of him. And in this, you see him so sullen and being like, right, I didn't want to do that. I only did it because I had to. Once again, don't know the full scope of the extenuating circumstances. So it seems like there is this like almost value for life of like, right, I did what I had to do, but don't like just cast him aside. Make sure he gets a proper burial, and the priest, and that he gets the whole works, that he gets treated right and not just disregarded. So like having that sympathy for an enemy isn't something I would have ever expected. That's why I'm like, I don't know if it's just this interpretation of Billy or that's always been a part of Billy across most media and even in real life. I don't know. So, yes, it's a very slow start, and it's not the most action-y start to it, but it was still a really interesting start to really get to know the character story. I'm curious if it's going to be like I don't think I saw anything referring whether or not this is a mini-series or not. This might be like it could run for multiple seasons type of thing, just depending on how much or where they want to take Billy's story, but Like, once again, I'm sure it's not going to be 100% like historically accurate. It's probably going to be like, right, we're going to mix in some history while also telling our own stories while still being true to the character and the time and the characters around said character of Billy the Kid. So I'm very excited. Like I said, the other episodes are out, so I will be excited to watch those and see where things kind of go, like how the show is structured and how this series goes about telling Billy's story. If I'm not mistaken, I think I saw that this is only going to be 8 episodes, so that's what I'm curious to see how it ultimately all ends up playing out, but especially going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.